Life is just one small piece of light between two eternal darknesses. Welcome everyone to Deep Drinks. If you can financially support this channel, we have links in the description for the Patreon, or you can become a member by joining the channel. Link in the joining button. It would really help this channel continue to grow and continue to produce awesome content like this. Today, my guest is Stacey, who goes by Apostacie online. She's a former evangelical turned secular activist. She's the co-host of Secular Soapbox, and her story is one of pursuing goodness and honest reflection. You can check out Secular Soapbox every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Stacey and I actually share many things in common. We both come from Pentecostal Christianity. We both experience the trauma that can bring. We both we're negatively affected by purity culture, and we both have amazing partners who dealt with us through the journey that we took them on through theological changes in our perspectives and the emotions that comes with that. Stacey spent a lot of her life seeking perfection, protecting her purity, and looking for demons around every corner. Stacey comes across as a very genuine person. It's easy to see as soon as you talk with her, and that's why I've invited her on the show. Welcome, Stacey, my new friend.
Aw, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. So that's something we should probably mention straight off the bat.
Yeah.
I was on your show, and it was just such a great time. Like sorry, I'm getting a bit of feedback. Oh my gosh.
That's okay. Is it me?
Yeah, no, it was me. Sorry, it was the I was just trying to the episode started playing in like another tab, and I'm like, which tab is that? And I couldn't like.
Oh,
think.
That happens.
Yeah.
On YouTube, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we had a really good episode on let me just. Oh my gosh, this is going fantastic so far. Sorry guys, I accidentally shared the wrong thing and blah blah blah. So we had a really good episode on your channel,
Mm-hmm.
and we could have just kept talking for ages. So we're like, let's continue the conversation over in Deep Drinks. But yeah, if anyone wants to go check out that, you can go over to Skeptic Haven and check out Secular Soapbox. And it was a really good time. Yeah. So Stacey, I have a question.
It was a really nice time. Oh, yes. Okay. So it's not that exciting. I'm sure you've drank this before with other guests, but it's just, I got mine from Starbucks. It's an iced coffee today.
Yay. I got my iced coffee.
Yeah. Yay. I was hoping, pardon?
I'm so thankful. I feel
I
like
was hoping to have something else. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Because it's 7 a.m. for you, right? Yeah. Well, it's
6
1 o'clock in the afternoon for me. 6?
Awesome. Yeah. So it was so funny. We were messaging back last night. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go to bed. I got to be up in 3 hours to because I was in the edit and Deep Drinks. But yeah, so this is going to be a really good. I'm really excited to get into your journey because it seems like we share a lot in common, especially the way you talk about your partner and the way I talk about my partner Amy. It's just it's so many parallels. Like I often describe Amy as like the rock, and I'm like this balloon that's like flying around at the top, and she's like holding me because like I've just been all over the place, and Amy doesn't really care, like I guess that's so much about the like Brian. yeah. And I heard Brian is he tweets a lot, so I followed him on Twitter as well. So
oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I have the first question I want to ask you before we jump into your story is, if you could give one word to describe your deconstructing, what would that word be?
Oh, well, right away, the first word that comes to mind is very freeing.
Yeah.
The amount of freedom I felt immediately was like nothing I'd ever experienced. So yeah, I'd say it was freeing.
Did you experience like a mix of like positive and negative emotions?
I think I had more positive emotions. For someone who was as devoted as I was, how it was, Christianity was my entire identity. Like you know how they say like your identity is in Christ? I that to be my entire identity. For someone who embodied that, it sounds so strange that I would be so happy as soon as I left that life. It was just, I felt euphoric. I felt like I was just like, I had this whole realization that I could choose. One, I stopped believing. As soon as I stopped believing, it was like everything made sense. But just knowing I had that choice, I never thought I had that choice. Even if I didn't stop believing, I never thought I had a choice in the matter. So very freeing. And as far as anything negative, I think the only thing that felt negative for a very short period of time was I kind of realized, oh, there's no heaven. Okay. I was very scared of deconstructing because I thought I'd commit a very blasphemous thing and that would automatically just send me to hell. So I had to be sure that that wasn't going to happen. I had to believe that there wasn't, or I had to know there wasn't a hell to send me to. But then once I realized that, I thought, okay, well, now there's no heaven. So, well, I'm not going to be able to be reunited with my loved ones. And this is all the time I'm going to have with them is right now. So I have to really, truly embrace every moment. And that was the only real grief that I felt. But other than that, I've just been so happy to leave it all behind.
That's so good. So let's jump into your story. So you grew up non-denominational Pentecostal, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, you say non-denominational, but everyone knows it's basically like it's its own denomination. We were charismatic, we were speaking in tongues, all of that. So yeah.
Yeah. So you spoke in tongues and laying on of hands. Did you? Yeah. This is a question I often. That's the same as me. But is there? This is a question I often ask myself. We used to speak all the time about miracles and signs from God. Do you remember any? Like, do you remember any like profound things that happened?
Yeah, I do actually.
Okay.
I do. I remember being in this one church that we went to for about 1.5 years, and they had a lot of, I live in Canada, and they had a lot of preachers that would come from like Florida and different places in the South, like Alabama and stuff. And they always came with their own like their own ministries, like prophecy or gifts of healing or gifts of like just miracles. And there was one particular guy who would come, and his ministry was like for people to get dental.
Say that again. Sorry.
Heard of that?
Sorry. Say that again.
Dental fillings.
Oh,
did it?
Right.
Like gold fillings in their mouth.
I've heard of that.
So you have, and he would come, and the thing is I don't know if I actually ever saw inside the people's mouth who were saying they were getting the fillings, but people were going up and saying like, I got a gold tooth, and they'd go up and tell everyone. But I don't know if I ever saw the person's like, oh, look, I have a, or maybe they just said it and showed it. And I don't know. There was no verifying of it.
Interesting. That
Yeah,
seems like something that could be so easily verified too.
just go to your
I've never,
dentist,
yeah, but
get
I've
the
never heard
records.
of. I know. I've never heard. I've never seen that. We never went that far in our church, I guess. But we were running around looking for gold dust when that movie Finger of
Yeah.
God came out. We're running
Okay.
around looking for
Well,
gold dust. Oh my gosh, this must be.
the same guy, he was always like telling us look for gold dust, and so like people would be looking at their hands, and I used to like
Yeah.
wash my hands before the service began because I wanted to, and I wouldn't like touch my face or anything in case I had like makeup on that would give it like a shimmer. And so there was like your hands would get shimmery, but I don't know how to like reconcile that. It still
Yeah.
could be like my lotion, or I was a teenager and like glitter spray was in, so I'm sure it was probably something to do with that.
I
So
I remember, yeah, same with our church. There was like these people were obsessed with the gold dust idea, and I
yeah,
think one time they're like, "That's here, gold dust here, it's here." They're
yeah,
running around, and it looked to me like someone had touched someone who had like glittery makeup, and like
that's
you could
exactly what
just
it
see
looked
it.
like.
Like it's almost
Like
like I feel like
eyeshadow.
I feel like if I looked hard enough, I could find gold dust in my hand now. Like
That's how
you really
I,
were looking for it.
yeah, that's how I sometimes I'll still look at my hand and I'm like, hey, I can kind of see like some shimmer, and it's probably just from like body products or
Yeah,
something of that sort, or maybe just hugging people while you're at church and their makeup is getting on you. I don't know, or they're
yeah.
praying with you or holding your hands or
Yeah.
something.
And
Yeah.
how were all these things like explained to you? Like how did you accept them? So for me, I was kind of near the end of my faith when I was kind of getting into a part of Christianity where I wasn't so on fire for God when the gold dust started happening. I was kind of like, and I was kind of thinking to myself like, why is this, why is there gold dust appearing, or manna, people were getting manna
Oh
appearing in
yeah.
their Bibles?
No.
Yeah, not anywhere I saw, but like in documentaries on Christian
Yeah.
programs. But yeah, so it's like I was always wondering why that would happen. What was your thoughts behind that?
I definitely thought it was like a move of the Holy Spirit. I believed it, and this was in like the late '90s, and
Mm.
I don't know if you're familiar. You might be because of what you're doing and stuff. But the Toronto Blessing. Do you know? Are you familiar
No.
with that at all? Oh, okay. So that was like a huge thing that began at a Toronto church, and it's called the Toronto Blessing, and it was like a revival that was going on and on
Oh,
and on. And I think even like Bill Johnson from Bethel, like he attended it, and he got some like major prophecy at that Toronto Blessing revival. So this was sort of like look how God's outpouring to our church from Toronto Blessing, and there you go.
oh
um,
wow.
so this was sort of kind of like a step, like a branch off of that. At that time, this was like a move of God that was sweeping through the nation, to the next generation. So it seemed very real to me.
Oh
And
yeah, and
and
it is an interesting phenomenon, like the whole revival spectacle, because there's definitely something about it. Like I don't think anything's going on. I don't think like goblins are controlling the spirit realm, or there's like I don't think there are things that are actually happening. But it's interesting how it does actually happen. Like how we get groups of people who just become
yeah,
fanatical, like, or it's like a group hysteria, mass hysteria. They call it.
yeah.
And there's been
I,
cases of mass hysteria where people can't stop laughing or dancing for days.
oh
Like,
yeah, that happened.
yeah, but
The
like outside of
laughing
Christianity,
that.
like,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I heard about that after.
yeah.
Yeah. hmm
So,
When I heard about that,
yeah. So
oh, I was
sorry,
going to
say
say
that again.
when I heard about like the mass hysteria and the laughing outside of Christianity, um, like years later, I thought, okay, that there's no way that any of that was real back
Yeah,
in my youth, because if it can happen in other places, then that was definitely not God. So that's how I kind of reconciled that later, was that wasn't actually God. That was just people like getting kind of their emotions all swelling and yeah.
So you're in this church. Like, were you always like? Were you always saved, or were you like did you have a rebellious teen years, or did you grow up within church? Like, lead us through what kind of Christian you were.
I was always saved. Apparently, I answered an altar call when I was like 3 years old.
That's adorable.
Because I knew what a sinner I was at 3 years old. So I guess like if anyone would have described me, they would have said I've always had this love for Jesus, I answered an altar call. I gave my life to Jesus, and I feel like I was sort of just that's just how I was. I was like, okay, Stacey's a Christian, and I just grew up that way, and I wanted to just continue growing up that way because it was the right thing to do. But because of that, I got introduced to a lot of really bad theology as far as like spiritual warfare because of that at like age 3 years old. Like very bad. I don't know what the story is exactly. It kind of comes from my grandmother. She had a big house that had a sliding patio door, and I apparently said there was a wolf outside. And I was 3. Like my kids say things all the time. I would never equate that to a demon now. But she said that I was saying, "Oh, there's a wolf outside. I can't go outside. There's a wolf." And so apparently, like a couple of days later, one of her prayer partners called and said, "Every time I pray, I keep seeing this like wolf outside of your house and snatching the blessings that are trying to come in." So it was like, oh, well, Stacey's been seeing a wolf. And so then I was like, okay, well, you can see in the spirit realm. That's what I was just believing. So I thought, okay, well, I must have this like gift that I can see in the spirit realm, because I've been told this since I was 3. And I was like, okay, well, the spirit realm's a real thing, and I can see it apparently. And so that brought in a ton of baggage. Now looking back, before I thought, oh, this is such a gift, but no, it was not a gift.
Yeah.
Even if I believed in it, it's not something that a 3-year-old. It terrified. It's terrifying to think back. Like, I have a 3-year-old now. Like, I would not be telling him, oh, you can see demons and speak to those demons and tell them to leave. The way that you're told that in charismatic circles.
I know it can be very wild, and I had a schizophrenic friend, and who was very into church, and I remember sitting down and they were talking to me about like how they got really when they got really sick, they could see demons entering. Like, they'll be walking through the shopping center and they could see demons entering and leaving people, and they could every time they talk to people, they could only see the demon and all this stuff. And they were telling me as if it was like real. And I remember just saying to them, like, how do you determine like the difference between like your mental condition and the spirit realm? And he got like really, really down. Like, it was a hard question and I felt kind of like a dick for asking, because I didn't realize it was such a, but yeah, he tried to explain it, and then he kind of got a bit sad. And I was like, damn, like this type of this perspective like preys on mental conditions, and we'll get into that a little bit. About because like I don't have schizophrenia, but I've had some OCD stuff go on, and you've had some stuff go on, and we'll definitely get into that. But I do want to kind of just kind of go through your story a bit linearly.
For sure.
So yeah, it is wild though, right? How like it's just wild. So So how did you go from that to thinking that things were like spiritual and everything to like and seeing into the spirit realm to like becoming to start questioning your faith? Like how did you go from that? And when did you start questioning your faith? How old were you when you started questioning
Oh my
your faith?
gosh, not that long ago. Not that long ago. I basically, I was, from the time I was 3 until, how old was I in 2019? 35. That's when I began questioning my Pentecostal faith, like the charismatic, all of that. I saw a Christian documentary called The American Gospel, and it basically exposed sort of the falseness of the charismaticness, the word of faith movement, the whole speaking things into existence, the speaking in tongues, still, like
Joyce Meyer.
Joyce Meyer, exactly. They feature them in this documentary. Okay.
Yeah.
And so they really break it down, and they kind of get to like the meat of the gospel, and it answered a lot of questions that I kind of always had about what I grew up with, because I found that there were so many question marks for me, like about Christianity. But I just was like, well, I guess I'll just know one day, or I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm not smart to know the answer to this. Maybe this is just, this is God's ways are higher than my ways, like that's sort of how you kind of sense at times. But then this documentary came out, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is everything I've kind of always felt about like spiritual warfare or speaking in tongues, and just being like, is this actually real? Like, or prophecy, like in terms of how people prophesy now over other people. Like, they basically, that documentary says how like those were just for the apostles in that time, and when all the apostles died, those gifts ceased, right? So I thought, okay, well, that actually makes sense. So, okay, I guess I've just had the wrong version of Christianity. I need to find the right version of Christianity. So I still had like a bunch of questions, but this documentary, it was very, very, very heavily influenced by the Reformed community, like a Calvinist perspective. And all of the pastors and preachers and teachers that they had that were Christian, that were featured in this documentary, were all like basically Calvinist. And they presented in such a like beautiful way of the gospel that I thought, okay, well, I guess that's the way that I should be like looking at the Bible. And I wanted to know more about how the Bible came to be, how it was like assembled, sort of like what the text actually meant. And I had so many questions answered just on like the Pentecostal stuff that I thought, well, I'm never going to let myself not find the answers to things ever again, because I found out a ton of answers. I feel like that was like a lot of deconstructing this particular summer, because I deconstructed all the gifts of the Spirit, like prophecy, speaking in tongues. I deconstructed spiritual warfare. From a Christian perspective, I still was like, this is bunk. Like, I don't believe in spiritual warfare anymore. I also deconstructed like the rapture. I no longer believed in that anymore. So I was deconstructing things without realizing that that's what I was doing. I was changing my views. I was like, nope, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that. And it was feeling really good. And I was like, I'm going to keep like, if I question, I'm just going to like find out answers. So that's sort of what led me that I'm at today, because the questions just kind of kept coming and the doubts never fully disappeared. And I kind of like put a Band-Aid of Calvinism on the doubts, just to sort of like, well, I still have to be a Christian. I didn't think it was an option, even though I went through a time where I was like, I don't think any of this is real. But I didn't think that I couldn't be a Christian because I was so afraid of hell. That was so ingrained in me. And I was more afraid of hell, and I believed more in hell and like demons at times than I did in God. And I thought, if I believe in demons, then I believe in God. So I'm just gonna, this is too much. I can't believe. I'm pooped. So
yeah.
So
KCA Randy says,
yeah.
if you pull on the string, it all comes apart, and that is so true.
It is.
That is
Yeah.
so true.
It is. Yeah. So it wasn't until like 2021. Sorry if you were going to ask a question, but.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Is breaking up a little bit. Is everyone else experiencing an okay stream? It could be me. I'm hoping it's not me. But yeah, if everyone else is experiencing an okay stream, that's fine.
Yeah.
But so I apologize if there's a great if there's a little bit of a delay and we keep talking over each other. I apologize if that might be my fault. So how did you go from that's what I was going to ask. What is okay? So it says Stacey's kind of breaking up a tad. It seems okay now, but
sorry.
I'm
in an Airbnb.
Yeah. Okay. So you got your whole family up to leave early to go to get there on time, and you got here 20 minutes beforehand. Yeah. So hopefully things work out. Like the audio gets a bit better, but if not, I hope everyone can we can deal with it. So what is Calvinism? No, it's fine. It's not so bad. What is Calvinism? So I've never understood, like, I never understood Calvinism when I was a Pentecostal Christian. Because I look at the verses in the Bible and I'm like, it says the disciples will cast out demons and drink poison and yada yada. So what is Calvinism? And can you give me can you convert me from a Pentecostal to a Calvinist right now? I'm not a Pentecostal, but yeah.
You don't want Calvinism is basically.
Oh, hang on. It's
really
maybe it's the audio is like I can hardly hear you. I wonder if it might be because some people are saying it's fine. Maybe it's me. Hang on a sec. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, sorry.
In the meantime, I'll promote our stuff. So we got a Deep Drinks podcast. If you like content like this, make sure you subscribe. We have 1,000 subscriber charity stream coming up, which is going to be awesome. We're raising money for Ukraine, and hopefully I'm trying to raise money for Uganda's new anti-LGBT bill. I'm trying to find a way I can do that. I've been talking to Pepe, but as a trans person, they will now have to serve 20 years in prison if they're caught for identifying as non-binary, as identifying outside of the binary stereotypes. So binary category, gender category, sorry. So it's not good. So I don't know if we will be able to have him on. We also have, in a couple of days, we also have Dr. Matthew Moga coming on to talk about how there is no soul in the Old Testament. That'll be super interesting, as well as a bit of his story. Stacey has an awesome Instagram. You should go check it out. Apostacie, @Apostacie. And also make sure you check out Skeptic Haven and see her show every Wednesday, Secular Soapbox. But yeah, how do you think how's the audio now, Stacey?
How does it sound now?
Yeah, it sounds
okay.
It's breaking up a little bit, but we'll keep going, and we'll just hopefully it stays okay.
Is it? Do you want me to switch to my phone?
Yeah,
Do
try
you want
that.
me to
actually.
switch to my phone?
Yeah, let's try that.
Okay, I'm sorry, everyone. Okay.
That's okay. We'll try that, and
I'll
I'll
leave.
entertain everyone.
You promote something. I'll be like 2 seconds. Okay.
Okay, cool. So, so these things happen. I mean, hey, but how's everyone doing? How's everyone doing? And how's everyone going? We got 15 live viewers. It's really cool. When I went on Stacey's channel, we had a wild time. You guys should definitely go check that out because like we were just having the best time. I don't know, something was going on with my brain at that moment, and I was just like, I was just like, I just had all these like stories. One of the things I kind of didn't think I was going to mention, but I think I should tell everyone, is the story that one time, we talk about spiritual warfare and things like that. One time when I was training to be a youth pastor, I mentioned this on Godless Engineers stream. There was this like, I went down to preach to this small group down in like one part of our youth on a Friday night, and I ended up preaching about all these things spiritual, like these big amazing things that happen, yada yada. And one of the youth, who was only like 14 at the time, started to like demonically manifest, and it was really like, it was really whack. So a few things. One, he ran out the door. So someone pulled me over and said, we got to pray for this person. We're praying for them. And then they just burst through our prayer circle and then open the door and try to run off, right? And we chase them. So we're chasing this like youth through the church. And he burst through the door. But then it's really funny because all these stories started to form instantly about, oh, he didn't actually touch the doorknob. He just pulled it open with the power of the demons, right? And you can see how this could maybe happen in like a Jesus story. I don't know, but like all these stories started happening, and we bring him into this room, and we're trying to pray for him, and he's spitting on us. He's like screaming. He's spitting on my face, and I'm saying like, the power of Christ compels you. And I didn't say that, but I was saying all these things. It was a really wild time, and so that happened for like hours. We're in this room, and me and these youth and these leaders are trying to like hold this guy down, and we're screaming that for this demon to get out. And he would like scream this big scream like, ah, and then he would go, he would say like, he would just smile, and then he would say, I'm back, and like pretend like this demon would come back. And it was like the same thing over and over and over again. And it got so bad that like his parents were waiting in the parking lot for like 45 minutes. And the current youth pastor came in and said, what's going on? He finished the prayer. They jumped in the car, and he jumped in the car with his parents. And then he, like everyone was like standing around the car, like talking to him, and we're trying to explain to the parents, oh, I'm sorry, you're there or whatever. And River City Films was actually, he was the youth that called me over and said, we need to pray for this person, and he was in the room with me. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Thank you for the super chat, River City Films. And anyway, he just bursts out of the car and just runs off. So now we're chasing this like youth through the parking lot of the church at like 11 o'clock at night. His parents been waiting in the car for like 40 minutes. And yeah, it was bad. A lot of parents pulled their kids out of youth group at that time. It was a wild experience. But if you want to hear that full version, you can listen to it on Godless Engineers stream. But Stacey is back.
Okay.
Hey, Stacey.
Is this better?
Oh, it's way better.
Oh, yeah, okay, good. I'm so sorry, you guys.
No, that's okay. Everyone got to hear a fun story about my demon casting a demon out of a youth member, casting out a demon. And I called him up and I spoke to him about this. And I also want to shout out, thank you, River City Film. You became a member of the channel. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
But I rang up this person and spoke to them, and they're kind of like a up and coming. I reckon they'll be famous one day, very famous one day. Recording artists. So and I asked them, do you want to come on? And they said, honestly, like they don't really remember a lot of it because it was just like it's so traumatic. They've kind of like put that part of their life in a different area in their brain. But anyway, back to your story. So explain, what is Calvinism?
So Calvinism is, it's okay. So when I was in a Pentecostal church, it would have been considered like the dry church. They don't have the Holy Spirit. They're boring. They're very liturgical. But how I thought they were when I was in it is they really followed the Bible. They're really in, like, they're just very into doctrine and dogma and very rule based. And they have there's like the 5 points of Calvinism. So there's like total depravity, unconditional grace, limited atonement, irresistible something, and or I don't know, they have like all these different perseverance of the saints. So they believe also in like election. So it's not really like your choice that you're saved. God elected you or predestined you to be saved before the beginning of time. And you also don't know who God elected to be saved. So you definitely have to preach the gospel to everyone. And also if
That's
somebody
convenient.
like me, yeah, someone like me who has fallen away, I was never saved to begin with, because someone who's truly saved does not turn away from the faith. So
Yeah,
they,
that's pretty universal, I think.
yeah,
But
yeah,
every Christian I've ever spoken to says that I was never a true Christian, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess
exactly.
I'm never a true Christian.
Yeah, I know. So
I remember
they're very dogmatic.
I remember having a friend come over from. It was I used to do game development, and he was someone who did one of my courses, and he came over from Canada actually, and he came over to Australia and he said, "Hey, I'm in this area." And I said, "Actually, that's 5 minutes from where I live." And he's like, "Do you want to grab a beer?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's grab a beer." We went to we meant to just talk about game development. We went to the pub and we ended up talking about religion the whole time. And he was a staunch Calvinist. Like he was like, and I said, and I didn't really know what Calvinism was at the time. And I said, and I was an atheist. I was deconstructing at the time. And I said, how do you reconcile? So do you believe that God just creates people destined for hell? And he said, eventually he said, yes. And I said, that makes God out to be incredibly cruel. And he was like, and he's like, well, I know. And he's like, people make that claim all the time, but that's what the Bible says. And I'm like, okay. And then he flipped it on me and he said, do you think, he's like, did you believe in Pentecostal, like praying for people and healing? I was like, yeah. And he's like, I think that's immoral, because why aren't those people outside of a children's hospital every single day? And I was just like, ugh. And we're both kind of pointing out the immorality of each other's like
theology.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah. It's wild. So so is there like a main scripture, and just before we move off Calvinism, is there a main scripture that they have for the I guess for the fact that some people are just elected and some people aren't? Is there a scripture that they point to for that?
There definitely are some. I think in Romans, it's been so long. There are some a lot that definitely have the word like elected and like God elected, and it's like, yeah, you can kind of see it. It's like, yeah, that it says it right there. You can see that kind of what they're saying makes sense in a way, and you can believe it. If you have that thinking of a Calvinist, you're like, yeah, no, I think they're right. So it's easy to kind of understand, but it's also very sadistic at the same time. Like, that's one thing my husband was just like, I don't like that. He's like, that just seems really awful.
I always make this joke that, like, I will, because it's so funny that your husband is your husband is so much like my wife, in that like there's so many times where like I'll like burst through the door. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just discovered this thing that totally changes our whole worldview, and everything is like a lie, and Amy will be like cutting up some stuff for a cheese board. She's like, oh, okay. She's like, that's interesting. Anyway, do you want and she doesn't care. Like, I'm like, but doesn't this like, or like I'll tell her something. I'm like, doesn't this have like a knock-on effect for everything that you believe? And she's like, I guess so. And I'm like,
yeah.
But like, what, does that matter? Does that, like, oh my god, like, and I was always worried too, because I don't know if is it Brian, sorry, your partner? Brian?
Brian.
Is that
Yeah.
his name? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was always worried that
Yes. Yeah.
Amy wasn't saved. So I would because she'd never spoken tongues. So I was always like really worried about that. Yeah. So you the same with Brian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah. It's super.
Yeah.
It puts you in a super weird spot. Hey. So how did you go from
Mm-hmm.
Calvinism to leaving your beliefs altogether?
It, you know what, we moved away from our church, from everyone we knew, and it being away from everything is when I started really doubting it all, and it was like everything, my brain kind of cleared, and we weren't in church all the time, like 2 days or 2 times on Sundays, and it was just moving away and not being in that bubble. And I was starting to really think. And I was like, this isn't really making sense. And this, I don't know if I really want to do this anymore. And I think I want to kind of explore this idea. And I started listening to other podcasts and documentaries. I even listened to a podcast or a documentary on the effects of purity culture put out by Joshua Harris, who wrote I Kissed Dating Goodbye. I don't know if you remember that book at all.
No, I don't
No?
remember that
Oh,
book. No, but I know the name. We had this preach from one of the wife of our youth pastor. So I guess she was also a youth pastor. I don't know, but she was created this like preach that was like dating, what to do, and we're all like with bated breath, like waiting, like what do we do, because we're all new Christians. And she's like,
yeah.
don't. And she's like, court. And I was like, what? And we're like, and she's like, yes, you court for marriage. And we're like, okay. And like she did this whole preach about it. And we're like, wow, okay, that's weird. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So he wrote this book in the 90s that was basically, yeah, the same thing. And like every time you even like, the start of the book was like, imagine like you're getting married to your spouse, and then every person that you ever like were intimate with comes up at the altar and is standing there with you, with your spouse. So they're all like, they have a part of your life and they come into that marriage with you. And it's just like, so it just paints this picture of you, like you give a piece of yourself away to everyone, right? So he later, it was in like 2019, I think, he deconverted, and he apologized for the damage that his book did. And I was actually
Wow.
quite curious. Yeah. I think if he's not an atheist, he might be like agnostic, but he doesn't believe anymore. And so I heard he had a documentary out, and he kind of like, he went around and just like talked to people that book affected in a major way. And as I was watching the documentary, I'm like, hey, purity culture did kind of mess me up. Like, maybe it is really screwed up. And so that was kind of, wheels were starting to turn just about that. And that was sort of the beginning. That wasn't like what, sparked my whole deconversion, but it just kind of got me thinking of just Christianity in general. And I was like, I don't know, this seems pretty bad.
Yeah.
um, and I kind of just like, I went from there, and it, just from one thing to the next. And I just was getting like more like, I want to know more. I want to know more. Like, this is so fascinating. And I was kind of feeling the same way that I did when I found out about how everything I believed about like the Pentecostal church and like that kind of movement. I was getting that same sort of like realization and this like epiphany moments like every day. I was like, okay, this is blowing my mind. I need to continue this because something's happening here and I don't want to stop it. And that's basically what led me into deconverting. Is I was just like, I have to find out more. Like, things are starting to click, and I need to go while this momentum is like at its peak. And I also needed some like permission, not permission, but I was afraid of hell, like I said. And I kind of cornered my husband in the kitchen one day because I was like, I'm so scared. Like, he didn't know all the turmoil I was in and the excitement at the same time. But I was like, what if there's a hell? Like, what if I do this and I end up going there? And he had that quote, which you kind of had a little bit of it reminded me of the quote you said at the beginning, like a small part of like the one he said to me. But he's like, I saw this quote on Twitter. Maybe it'll help you. I don't know. And it said like, life is the spark between two identical voids, the one before birth and the one after death. And it was just this like light bulb went off. And I was like, oh my God, before I was born was an eternity. And I have no recollection. I wasn't being tortured. I wasn't like, nothing was happening. I have no memory of it. And it's probably going to be the exact same when I die. So I have nothing to lose. I don't think I need to be afraid of this. And that was kind of how my fear of hell just completely disappeared, which was crazy because that was like 37, 38 years of fearing it. And then I needed to also know the history of how hell got brought into the church. Like, I didn't just stop right there. I was like, okay, well, now how did this even come into play?
So it's like you're now approaching intellectually rather than emotionally. Like, that also helped. Like, you know, like when I thought of it, like I've had a lot of discussions in my deconstruction and debates with people, and a lot of thoughts would like pop up. And one of the thoughts I had was like the same thing. It's like, you know, what is it? Where do we go when we die? Well, I don't know, but it'll probably feel like the 13.8 billion years before we existed. Like, it'll probably feel like that. Or another one is that helped me. It was one of my thoughts that I said to my cousin, and he said, you know, what happens when, you know, where do you think we go when we die? And I said, I thought about it, and I said, I think we go to the same place a flame goes when you blow out a candle. It's like you don't think of it like it goes somewhere. It's just it ceases to exist. It's gone. There's a freedom in that, isn't there? Like, for me,
huge.
For me, there's some part of a sadness, but it's also, it actually makes me appreciate life so much more. Like, I want to travel. I want to spend time with my family. I want to not sweat the small stuff, and like, you know, like, were you the same?
Oh, totally. I remember just waking up the first couple of months, like excited. I had butterflies in my stomach every single day because I was just like, there's this whole world I can learn about now. And I was just like, I was checking out books from the library. I didn't read them all, but I just was like, I want to get this one and this one and this one. And I would come home.
Oh, well, you see, that's what I did. Look up half those I haven't even read because I gotta, this is so amazing, and I buy it, and then like a year's gone past, I'm like, I've got to read this book, but I keep getting more.
I wanted to know everything, and I was just like, it was so exciting. And I would like tell my husband something because I never looked at evolution before because I never believed in evolution, right? So then I'd find out something really fascinating. I'm like, did you know this? And he's like, yeah. He's like, you did? I'm like, no, because I just thought, well, I'm not going to even look at it because I believe in creation. So why would I even entertain the thought of evolution? So then just tiny little things about evolution were just so cool when I learned them. And I was just like, man, I wish I knew about this from my whole life. But I don't know if it would have been as fascinating when I learned them in school. I probably would have been like, okay, cool. Like, that's great. But now it's like, this is so incredible. So
just to give Kent Hovind a clip to work with if he ever whacks me as an atheist. But for me, because he always talks about evolutionism as a religion. He always talks about it being a religion. It's definitely not. It's a science.
Mm-mm.
But I was so blown away by it that it almost felt like a religion when I first started looking into it. I was so overwhelmed with awe and wonder and mystery, and I couldn't stop looking at fossils, and I was like, oh my god, like look at it, like, and I would look at our beagle, and I'm like, we got him desexed, and I'm like, 3.4 billion years. You've there's been a successful line of in 3.4, and we've just ended it, like done. Like
Done.
you'll never have a descendant. And I'm just like, that is overwhelming. That's incredible. And like I'm looking at his eyes and his ears, and I'm going like, how we've kind of selected these animals to be more cute for us. And I was just kind of blown away. It actually made me think more about my food choices as well. I became a vegetarian because I was like, because I would be like, I'd look at the animals and I'm like, if we're just animals, like it was for me, it was really wild. Like it was really wild.
That's interesting.
But something that you really wanted to talk about, and this is the part that I'm most excited to talk about, is what I'm going to phrase as magical thinking, which is the need to confess, the mental health that comes along with issues that come along with with these type of church environments. So can you go into a little bit about you? So I released a video for those who haven't watched it. It's called My OCD Story, and I spent lots of time editing it, and no one cares. It's like you spend all this time doing something. Thank you. I'm like, this is going to be a banger, and it's like 100 views. I'm like, damn it! And then I put no work in another video, and it's like everyone's like, woo, this is amazing. I'm like, damn it! It's funny how YouTube works. But with the OCD, just to give everyone a recap of what happened to me. So, and just quickly, I was trying to get back with, like, have a stronger relationship with God, and I was in my father's woodworking shop, and I was praying, and I heard this. I was making Amy a jewelry box, which I ended up making and giving to her. And I heard this. I started praying because I wanted to open up my heart to God. I felt this booming voice say, "Break up with Amy." And I immediately had a panic attack, and I went outside and I was vomiting in the garden because I just would panic anyway. And the panic attacks got so bad, I was vomiting every night. But and walking around the street, I lost a bunch of weight, which was kind of cool. But besides that, I was not living a good life. I couldn't get out of bed, and stuff like that for a long part of the day. And I was seeing, like, Sunday I would go to church, Monday I'd go to church counseling, Tuesday I'd go to prayer nights, Wednesday I'd go to another church counselor or mentoring, and Thursday or mentoring. Like, I was doing things every day of the week, and my parents begged me to go to a secular psychologist. Eventually, I decided to go to the secular psychologist, and the first session, they were just asking questions. I was pretty much filling out a form. I thought it was really stupid. And the second time I went along, they asked me to repeat out loud, "What if God wants me to break up with Amy?" And I said, "No, I can't do that. I'll. What if I take it literally? What if I push past you? I run out and I call her and I break up with her? What if?" And I said, "I'm a Christian, and the Bible says that there's life and death in the power of the tongue. I don't want to confess it over my life." And he was really firm with me, and he's like, "No." He's like, "You're going to stand here and you're going to say, 'What if God wants me to break up with Amy?'" And I argued with him for a while, and then eventually I said, "What if God wants me to break up with Amy?" And he's like, "Say it again." I'm like, "What if God wants me to break up with Amy?" And then my anxiety is building. He's like, "Say it again." And I kept doing this for about a couple of minutes until I'm panicking. I'm having a huge panic attack. And mind you, I felt like I was in an episode of psychosis for like 3-4 weeks. Like, from this moment that I was in my dad's tool shop, I was just constantly at a fight or flight, like a 9 on the anxiety scale all the time. And actually, at about midday, I'd go down to about a 5 out of 10. Like, I was, for some reason, midday was okay, but nighttime and mornings were horrible. And eventually, I'm saying it, and I'm like looking for a bin to vomit in his office, and I'm like looking around. I'm like, I'm going to vomit, and he's like, "Say it again, say it again, say it again." And then eventually, it was like click, and it's like I was saying, "What if God wants to break up with Amy? What if God?" And then all of a sudden, I was like, "What if God wants me to break up with Amy?" And then he's like, "Say it again." I'm like, "What? Why did I ever think that?" And it was honestly it was like Paul on the road to Damascus. Like, the scales fell from my eyes. Like, it honestly was like it just broke. And I was just like, why did I ever think that God wanted me to break up with Amy? And that realization was like, to cut a long story short, is I kind of realized that the voice of God for me in that moment was an OCD tick. Why could a tool of psychology work on what I thought was a pretty strong voice from God? You know, so it was wild. Hey, you doing? Hey, what the
Wow.
Becks? Hey, everyone that's in the chat. Thank you for listening.
I can't see any comments, so
oh, okay.
I'm on my phone. So hi, everyone.
So that's so that was like what I shared. And you said that you said something really interesting to me, and you said that you always had a need to confess, and and that I don't know if you know this, but that actually is one of the we're not diagnosing anyone with OCD at the moment, but
no, it's
okay.
but
that is one of the things that that people with OCD can tend to have, and that's definitely how mine manifested. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've been listening to like some more OCD things this week because I never actually had got an official diagnosis. I never, but you can kind of tell after so many years and listening to doctors on YouTube that are psychiatrists. I am 99.999% sure that if I were to see if I would have OCD, just given the intrusive thoughts, the racing thoughts, the constant need to confess those thoughts in order to feel any kind of relief, but that relief only lasts momentarily until those thoughts come back. Avoiding triggers for those thoughts, like places, situations, songs, TV shows, scenarios in TV shows that could trigger the thought. So this started when I was young, like a teenager, and they'd wake me up from the like dead asleep, and they'd wake me up, and they would just go over and over and over and over.
Oh, wow.
And I could not go back to sleep. And the only way I could get up is I'd lay there in agony. But the whole time I would be thinking, this is Satan. I didn't necessarily think this was me. Okay. So I thought that I was having an attack from the enemy. And I would my stomach would be in knots. I would feel like I'm going to either throw up or I felt sick. And I just remember laying in bed, having these intrusive thoughts that were not true. They were never anything that was true, but they would just not stop. And I would have to get up, wake up my mom, get her to come and lay with me. And I would but it would take all the courage in me to work up to tell her the thought. And I'd lay there and I'd say, you're going to think I'm the worst person in the world. You're going to think I'm horrible for even thinking this is not me. And she would just reassure me, no, you're not bad. You're a good girl. I never, you asked if I had a rebellious stage ever. I didn't. I never did. I never ever acted out. I never partied. I never drank. I never was promiscuous. Never. Any of those things. I wanted to be as pure and as good because I never wanted to have to confess for any other thing.
Yeah. So just quick side note, did you ever do drugs or anything like that in your life? No. Yeah, I heard you say something like that about you never smoked weed or something on another one of your shows because I was doing some research.
Well,
and I thought, have you now?
Just in the last 6 months.
Oh,
I've
cool.
tried it.
Oh, awesome.
But that's only in the last 6 months.
Yeah. I was thinking because Deep Drinks is going to go international when we can, this channel keeps growing. I want to start doing live in-person interviews and stuff. This is a joke, but I was thinking how funny it'd be if we both did a trip together. Because I've never done it either, and it'd be like I'm terrified of it. So I'm like, let's go take our families and we'll go trip out. I don't know, it'd be talk about the universe. We do a long 12-hour Deep Drinks episode anyway.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
a joke.
Yeah, no, so I was straight. I've never tried a cigarette. I'm 39. I've never tried a cigarette, nothing. But probably 6 months ago, and I have no desire to, but 6 months ago, when I was like, you know what, if I want, I can try it. It's legal here. I'll try it. So that was it. Okay, 6 months ago, everyone. That's my big confession.
What was it like? Did you experience it? Because a lot of people don't experience the high for the first time. Did you experience it?
I giggle. Yeah, I giggle.
Yeah.
It's
Uh,
I laugh.
yeah.
I laugh a lot just in general, and it just kind of intensifies. I just get very like, hee hee hee, this is so funny, and everything's
Yeah.
hilarious,
The
and
is
yeah.
funny, just a funny story. Like we were going to go to Amsterdam, and I have a background in I went to like a rehab at one stage, but it wasn't for anything. It's so weird. I didn't need to go. I thought I was becoming like schizophrenic because I was smoking weed for a few weeks. Like it was
Oh,
ridiculous that I
okay.
went. Like people were like, why? Like I'm here with people from jail and with heroin addictions and stuff, and I'm just like, I've smoked weed for a few weeks. But that's what the church told me I had to hit rock bottom. So I was like, let's hit rock bottom. I'll go to a rehab. Like it was
Yeah.
another story for another time. But so I was never, I was like, I'm not going to smoke weed again, and we're married. And then Amy one day says, and she's never smoked a cigarette. She's never even said some swear words. Like she's very similar, like very, very, very proper. And she goes, we were talking about going to Amsterdam. She's like, oh, I might try a hash cookie. And I was just like, what? I was like, really? And then we're like, yeah. And then we're talking about it. And then we talked to friends about it. And I was like, that's I've never thought I'd hear you say that. And then she's like, and people are like, well, cookies, you might not want to try cookies first. You might want to try smoking, and because you can control it. And then yeah. And then it was just like, and then someone's like, well, if you want to do it over in Amsterdam, you may as well try it here in Australia. And I'm not confessing any crimes to anyone, but hypothetically. Hypothetically we might have gone down to the beach like really late at night and like smoked weed as if like we're like and like walk back through the bushes like all, and it was not a good experience because of the setting that we're in, because we're both kind of like hiding it and being secret and like that, hypothetically. That is so it was wild. And then I did it a few times. I had a panic attack, and then when we got to Amsterdam I never did it in Amsterdam.
No, so all of the intrusive thoughts were completely sober. Completely sober.
So did I really resonate with how you say you've that need to confess and like confess to God, confess to people. It's absolutely wild. How crippling it can be. Like one of my family members had really bad OCD. And they would have to say at night, good night, I'll see you in the morning. And they couldn't sleep unless everyone in the house had said that back to them. Like it was really debilitating for the person. Like it was horrible. Or sometimes, and their OCD got so bad that it would take them 45 minutes to go to bed because they had to check the clock on the oven for 45 minutes from every angle. They had to like check this angle, that angle. They had to open it like 4 times. They had to close, like all this horrible stuff. That was like proper OCD. That wasn't like when people go like, "Oh, I'm so clean," like that's very different from that. But the need to confess. And I'll ask you a little bit about this, but I'll share something that happened to me. I have this need to confess, and I was affected by purity culture, so I always felt that I had to confess any time I had looked at porn or something to Amy. So when we were dating, I would be like, hey, I stuffed up again. Like, and it was horrible. Like, it's kind of like too much information. Kind of like for Amy's like, I don't like. She would always be like, I don't care. Like, you don't. All right, I'm sorry you feel, but I just always would have to tell. I felt like I couldn't move on until I told everyone about it. And thank God, thank Neil deGrasse Tyson that Amy put up with me all through that. But every time I would like sin, I guess, like that, I would have these truth thoughts that I need to confess. And I remember we got past all that. We're married, where everything was going good, and these intrusive thoughts were still kind of playing around here and there. But what would happen? What happened was Amy's like, just stop telling me. Like every time you think, like every time you like masturbate or something, you don't need to tell me. Like I don't care. Like I do it. Like it's fine. Whatever. And I was like, cool. Like awesome. And we got past that in our relationship. But one thing that was super, super wild was one time Amy told me something, and it was like, it was one of my friends she thought had come onto her at a party, and it was like she was not sure she should tell me because she wasn't sure if it really happened and all this, but it was a very vulnerable thing for her to do. And then as a result, because she said that, I felt like I had to confess something, and the only thing I could think about was to confess. This is going to sound so wild, and please, no one judge me. It's a mental condition. But I felt like I had to confess about every girl that was in our friend group that I had found attractive or thought about in a lustful way. And it sounds worse than it is, because just saying that, like, oh, I think this person's pretty,
It's
this, or I
not.
thought about this person. But when I'm walking around the kitchen, pacing up and down, having a panic attack, and Amy's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I need to tell you something. I need to tell you something. And then I'm like, I thought about this person, and I thought about and she's sitting there like, what? Like, she's thinking like I've cheated on her, but all I'm doing is telling her about lustful thoughts I've had of people in our friend group.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's like, which, and it sounds worse than it is. You can't confess something like that and it sound is, I can say like, oh yeah, I think my friends are hot, like I think some of my friends are hot, great, like whatever, like it's cool.
Yeah.
But the way I'm approaching it, like I'm confessing and I'm like, oh my, I need to tell you something,
Like you
it's
cheated.
like, yeah. And it was horrible. And Amy's like, yeah.
No, keep
Okay.
going. I
was just gonna say, like, Amy's trying to be supportive, but she's also a little bit like taken aback and a little bit hurt, because it's like it's almost like I'm making it sound way worse than it is. Like I'm making it sound horrible. It was just a nightmare. And I remember she kept like trying to bring me back to reality, and I kept confessing stuff, and then feeling bad. And we're up to like 3 a.m. and I just took a bunch of Valium and went to sleep. Like took enough Valium so I could not dangerously, but took a couple of Valium and went to sleep.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was horrible. Like, but it's like moments like that. Like I've gone to a psychologist, and the psychologist is like, actually, I think I went to my parents, and my parents like, David, get on medication, please get on medication. I was like, I went to a doctor and I was like, all right, the third time's a charm. Like, I'll take the medication you've been telling me to take for years, and I took it, and it was fantastic. But what were you saying?
I feel like I've had the exact same story. Like, not that I feel.
I thought you might.
I'm sitting here, my heart is pounding, because like I could almost cry right now just in relief, because there was a time where, yeah, it was years ago, but I went through a time where I was like, I felt this constant need, like, and I went to my mom, because my mom was the only person that could literally cleanse me of my sins. It wasn't God. I couldn't get that feeling from God. I'd go to my mom and I'd be like, she's like, Stacy, it's normal. You're a person. You have eyes. It's normal. If you think Brian doesn't think people are attractive, you're crazy. Like, it's just human nature. And I'm like, okay, but I feel so bad. And I think what also but it was real. Like, the thing is, I thought I was going to go insane.
Yeah.
Like, I had to take something to help me sleep as well. Like, we have Gravol here in Canada, which is like to help with nausea, but it also knocks you out, and you can just buy it over the counter. And I was taking Gravol to sleep because I could not sleep. And I was praying all the prayers. I thought, have I built up these strongholds? Do I need to tear down strongholds? Do I need to perform spiritual warfare? I was losing weight. All I could drink was ginger ale. I could sip it throughout the day. My mind was just, because I felt this immense guilt and shame. And then I remember saying to Brian, I was like, do I need to confess? Like, what if someone is attractive? He's like, and we're not the jealous type at all. Like, neither of us are jealous.
Yeah.
Like, if someone thinks he's attractive, I was like, ooh, that's so awesome, because you're mine, and I think you're attractive. So yay. Yeah. And he's the same way of like, we are not jealous people.
I know.
And we trust each other, and I adore him. But I would just be like, but you know what it is also, you know, the scripture that says, like, if you even so much as lust after a woman, you've committed adultery in your heart. And that, seriously, like, it fucked with my brain. Like, I don't know if I can swear, but that literally.
Yeah, you can swear. 100%.
I thought, okay, well then that's it. I've committed adultery. If I thought someone was cute and I was like, wow, he's really cute, then I'm an adulterer at heart. And what am I going to do? What am I going to do now? And so I just felt trapped.
It's wild, right? Like the even now, like sometimes those thoughts will kind of trickle in a little bit. So, but I've learned to like, my psychologist got me to laugh at them and like kind of like laugh at them and like talk about them, never talk about them in a confessing way, but talk about them in like. So I remember this time recently, when I became friends with she's a really good friend of mine now, but I become friends with this girl at university. There was like a photo that I thought, like a photo on her Instagram, and it was like one of those nudie bum photos where like all the girls like, yeah, and like it's the back of them, so you can just see their bums kind of thing. And I was like, oh, that's funny, like cute, like that's like, kind of cute, like it was a funny photo. And you know, like it wasn't like I was like, oh my god, like I've seen internet porn, like that's not gonna, like I'm not like blown away by bums, but like I was like, oh, that's, I was like, oh, cute, and I messaged like, cute, funny photo, like haha. But then like, you know, she would pop up every now and again. And I remember seeing her pop up and like, and then remembering the photo and like, oh, that's right. And I clicked on her profile and looked at the photo again, and I thought, oh no, I'm like, am I crossing the line now? Because like now I've gone back to look at the photo, but I wasn't looking for. I was kind of looking at it because it was a fun photo. It was kind of cute, and yeah, a bunch of girls' bums, like whatever. Like I see, like I like that. Yeah. So like but in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, like
go to the beach.
Have I just gone? Do I need to like? Am I having like unholy thoughts about my friend, and like I need to tell Amy about it, and like start creating distance between me and this? Like it was really weird. And you know, I think I ended up telling like I was a bit like anxious a little bit, and I was like, oh god, I'm getting stupid intrusive thoughts, and I told Amy, and she like laughed. I like laughed, and we kind of moved on. But it's back in the day, I would have been like, oh my god, I would have been like panicking and like been like, what do I do? Like I'm now flirting with the idea of like, you know, I'm already like planning like, okay, Amy's gonna break up with me when I can't control myself and I end up sleeping with someone else, and then I'm gonna like it's like I'm already moved out. I'm already like seeing Atlas on every second weekend. Like I'm like, it's already, my brain's already down like the most traumatic route ever, and it's all my fault. Yeah. Like
catastrophe, right? You go straight to catastrophe.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I get it.
It's so good to know that someone else has a weird brain like
that. I know. But see, I was afraid. I started looking into like therapy, but I was too afraid of going to therapy because I thought, well, they're going to make me talk about it. I can't say it out loud. I was too afraid to go and actually talk about it because I didn't want to say anything. And then I thought, if I tell them, that's my mom. She knows.
Oh, is that your mom?
That's my mom.
Hello.
She can
Very nice
vouch.
to see you.
Yeah. So I was just terrified. I'm like, if I go there, I'm going to have to talk about it. And then I was afraid if I go and then I come back and then like say my husband's like, oh, how was it? What'd you guys talk about? I'd be like, what am I going to tell him? Or like, I don't want to have to repeat anything. I just didn't want to talk about it. I only wanted to talk to my mom.
And what's ironic is you're probably like, if you're having those thoughts, like, I don't know how bad it got for you, but if you're having those thoughts about like, what if I find someone attractive? And probably the thought is like, if I find someone else attractive, it's going to maybe ruin my marriage, or it's an unholy thought and I'm unclean or whatever, and it's going to cause issues in a relationship. And one of those things, one of the ways that manifests is through maybe not having sex as much, or maybe not, you know, having those intimate moments, or maybe not being able to bond with them. And then as a result, you protect yourself, and you protect yourself from going down that route. But then the result of that is usually you're not in the mood to have sex, you're not in the mood to be intimate because you're hiding this thing. Oh, it's horrible, right? It's just
it's so bad. Yeah. I just felt I would come down on myself so hard, right? Like constantly, and like, why would he's asked if I was done. I'm not done. So if my mom is there, she can text him and tell him I'm not done. Okay. Stay away. Please text him. Anyways, so yeah, but okay. So even though I didn't go to therapy or anything, which I still want to do, it's not covered here. I don't really know. I would like to go to it because I'm not afraid of it anymore, thankfully.
Yeah.
But it took me a year to get the courage to go to the doctor and at least get on medication.
Mm.
So that did help. So I didn't leave it untreated.
Are you on a?
And
Could you mind if
but
I
it took
ask
me a
what if you're
year.
on? Are you on like an SSRI?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on Lexapro, and it's just been.
Prozac.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's
Okay.
to me, like, you hear all these horror stories about that, and I didn't take it because of all horror stories. I had like a dry mouth for 2 weeks, and then most of my symptoms went away. Like, it reduced the ups and downs by like 80%. Like, it was fantastic, and yeah, I love it. Yeah.
It
I know
is,
most people don't get that,
it
but I just
really
wanted to
did.
put out a positive experience, because it's like you only hear about vaccine injuries. You don't really hear about like a positive vaccine experience, because
Right.
even though it's way more common.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I've been on it now. I stopped it while I was pregnant for our last son, but he was born 4 years ago, and then I went back on it 3 years ago, and I have no intention because of going off, because it's working, and there has been times where I've needed to pick up my prescription, and I forgot for like 5 or 6 days, and I'm like, okay, I'll go. But then I have noticed, I'm like, oh my God, I actually really need this stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'm also
It can be worse after you
migraine
get off it.
I'm on a migraine medication as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, migraines
So
aren't nice. Hey,
I don't want to go off, but I'm on a migraine medication. No, but it also, a side effect of that is also a what's the word? Oh, it's a mood. There's a mood stabilizer in it.
okay.
And
yeah,
but I'm not taking it for that. It's just kind of like an added bonus. So
yeah,
I take it
nice.
for migraines.
So
I'm like, okay.
A lot of people riff on the pharmaceutical industry, and there are definitely some problems there, but holy crap, like the what we can do with medication is like only miraculous. It's amazing. Something so we can touch on the mental health stuff again, like touch on it, keep talking about it, but I do want to quickly bring up are you okay to go a little bit over, or do you need to like pretty much do 90 minutes? Okay. I just didn't want to make
I can go a little bit over. Yeah.
If your husband wants to come in and kids are screaming, that's fine.
I'm good.
If you kicked him outside and he's sitting in the garden with the kids, like
he can deal with them.
Okay. So one thing you talked about on another channel, you talked about COVID being a kind of a turning point for you in regards to the misinformation that was out there. So you got unfollowed by a bunch of people on Facebook or Instagram when you pointed out that you were vaccinated. Now, it's very political in the US, and I'm sure Canada, and it's moderately political here as well, which is silly because it should just be science. But you said something that's super interesting, and that was you realized like you would lay out the facts before, you were very kind of timid about the vaccine, which even me, I ran pro-vaccine marketing campaigns that I paid for and made myself. Like, I was a very big advocate for people getting vaccinated, and even when I got vaccinated, I was like, oh God, I've checked everything, right? Like, I was even up. It was weird, right? There's just the fear gets in your head. But you were like, a bit timid towards the vaccine, but you decided to go with like the facts and information and everything, and you got vaccinated. And then when you presented this information to your Christian friends, they weren't listening. You said they weren't listening to the facts. Like, they weren't listening to the facts. And then you thought, well, if they're not listening, like if they don't care about this here, how do I know that they're what if their beliefs weren't accurate, right? Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit?
That's basically, I was seeing how, and I know like everything's not 100% with pharmaceuticals, of course, but like for the vast majority, like I felt like this was something that I could trust. And I was just seeing how the people who were kind of not shying away from it, but screaming the loudest against it and seemingly dying from COVID tended to be like the right-wing conservative / conspiracy theorists. And I was like, they're mostly Christians, and there seems to be some kind of connection between that. So what is the connection? They're all Christians. What are they believing that might not be true about just Christianity. Like, what are they just blindly believing without looking into it any deeper? So that sort of is what made me jump into like exploring it even more, around that same time that I was watching other documentaries and like the one I talked about, the purity culture and stuff. But it really made me examine, what do I believe and why? Because I don't want to look like these people who are acting so foolish. And that is what basically sparked my deconstruction / deconversion without intending it to. So
it's like the ridiculousness of group mentality, right? Like, yeah. And even like, you know, protest the mandates or whatever, go for it. But the thing that I didn't like about the protests and stuff is like, protest, but you can still do it and accept the science. So protest the mandates, but social distance when you're protesting and wear masks. But none of them were. They're coughing and sneezing all over everyone. They're like incredible, and it's like the you know, it's like, I'm not anti-vax, I'm anti-mandate. So wear a mask, you dickhead. Like it's very confusing to me because it's like, it's so obviously not about the science and not about the you know, it's like if you know, you look at any of those anti-vax rallies, I would have no issue with them if they were there could have been a way to do them responsibly, or credit online movements or something, you know. Even if you had to go out in the street, at least wear a mask or do something to but it was a big pushback against the establishment, they thought, and it was so silly.
Exactly. It was very silly. And it was, I don't know if you heard over in Australia, but like here in Canada, from the West Coast to the East Coast, there was a truckers convoy where...
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
It was just
what was
such
that
an
about?
embarrassment. Well, it was just, it was like truckers going all the way across Canada, and people were supporting them, and the truckers were going to save us, and everyone was worshiping the truckers and like, yay, the truckers. I don't know. It was right around when they were going to start, you know, kind of like rolling back on mandates anyways. And so my husband was like, these people are going to think that they actually did this, when really this is the timeline of how this is all coming to play. And I didn't support the truckers because it was so stupid, and they just disrupted all of Ottawa for like 3 weeks, and they were having hot tub parties in the streets. And I'm like, you have freedom. You're not being arrested. You're blowing on horns 24 hours a day with hot tubs in the middle of the street and having like dance parties. You have freedoms. Like, what are you shouting about? So that's when I started losing like a lot of friends.
Yeah, it's not great. I can't believe that it's become such a thing. And we'll get off COVID, but there's I remember one of the cringiest and saddest and most horrible things I saw. Local community group I'm a part of. There's like this conspiracy group that like I snuck into to see what the anti-vaccine memes were about. And it's so funny, so many of my family and friends are on that group, and I'm like, oh, this is so bad. And they're talking about how like, I'm like, oh, I saw someone else at church today wearing a bright yellow Star of David on their jacket. And so it became trendy here to wear a Star of David on the jacket as if they were in Nazi Germany, and they had to, and it was like, they both nodded at each other, these people who were wearing it at church. Yeah, because it was like, they were kind of saying like, well, I'm unvaxxed, so I have to, so I'm and it's like, you know, typical of a Christian to, not to rag on Christians, but typical of a Christian to find any way they can to pretend to be persecuted. Like, it's just, it's they got this like this passion for being persecuted. Like, how do you know you're talking to a Christian? Yeah. How do you know you're talking to a Christian? It's like they're either hoping to be persecuted or they're pretending to be persecuted. Like, it's like when the same-sex marriage bill came around in Australia, I remember a lot of Christians thought somehow it was an attack on them. Like, they would see a poster that said like love is love, and they're like, oh, does this have to be everywhere? Like, it's just like, what are you talking about? Like, are you kidding me? Like,
nothing to do
this is society taking away the big stick that you've been whacking everyone with for the last 2,000 years. This is society taking away that stick. That isn't persecution. That's just equality. Anyway, I've gotten to the ranting stage of the conversation.
That's okay.
And Kitty's and husband coming in? Are they coming in yet?
Did you hear something? Oh,
Ah.
maybe I'll tell them to stay out.
No, they can come in, like, join the party. It's all good. So, is there anything else you want to talk about with the mental health stuff before we jump into Q&A? Is there anyone? Is there anything you want to talk about?
We touched on it.
Yeah,
no. I think we touched on it. Sorry,
yeah.
Is it breaking up again?
A little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay.
Sorry, I just saw this comment.
I feel so bad.
No, that's okay. Doorknob just said that's forked up, and it's now disgraced David A. Falk was unsurprisingly a big supporter of the truckers. Yeah, hey, Dr. Kip Davis. That's forked up. That made me laugh. I got so everyone doesn't know what's his name? David Falk. David A. Falk. He's the one. Yeah. He's the disgraced dude who said something about like Francesca Stavrakopoulos, that her scholarship only matters because of her cup size, he said, which was ridiculous. Like you shouldn't measure scholarship in cup size. And anyway, I got the whole internet came against him because like no one messes with Francesca, and also what he said was incredibly sexist and ridiculous. Yeah. But it's so funny. I got booted off his Twitter because I asked him. I was like, he's like, I need support because I've lost my job, and I was like, I need to know your cup size before I can go for a job. So get it up before I can support you. So I've been telling everyone, like, I've been asking everyone, like, what's his cup size, and yeah, that's my favorite meme hilarious. At the moment. Okay, so I've got a few questions for you, and these are some just general questions that I ask people at the end of Deep Drinks. What is the most plausibly true religion that you don't believe in?
Oh, plausibly, I'll say the flying spaghetti monster.
Okay, why is that plausible?
Funny. No, I don't know. The plausibly true. I don't know. I've never thought of this question.
Yeah, no, it's good. You can take your time.
Plausibly true. Plausibly true. You know what? I don't think I wouldn't subscribe to any of them, but I don't know if there is one that I would think would be plausibly true. They're knocking on the door. Yeah, I'll say the flying spaghetti monster. Because why not?
Cool. Yeah, why not? Awesome.
Why not?
Regarding your God belief, what, if anything, would change your mind?
Mm-hmm. If there was evidence, but even if there was a God, I know I have the choice that I don't have to worship him or not.
Mm.
So even if there was one, I don't think I would worship him. Yeah. So you can prove that he's there, but I still don't have to worship. So yeah.
Dr. Kip Davis said Canaanite religion for the win. I'd love to. When Kip comes on, Kip's going to come on again, hopefully around his 50th, which is coming up, isn't it, Kip? And we'll have to discuss in detail why the Canaanite God is the true God, if there was a God.
Okay, sure.
So, and we'll end, I guess, on this question, and this is a really good question for anyone who maybe has listened to your story, and especially the stuff about the mental health journey. What is the best piece of advice someone has given you? And then I'll ask the follow-up to that is, what advice would you have given yourself if you could go back in time?
The best piece of advice someone has given me? I would say, well, my husband, I don't think there's been like one specific piece of advice that he's given me, but he's just been such a constant supporter. Like, he's never discouraged me from anything. Like, he's never said, no, I don't think you're right, no, don't do that, no. Like, he's just always supported me in like whatever I've wanted to explore next. and I don't go explore like anything crazy, I don't think. Eventually it leads me to the right answers. So I think just having him being support to me, and that day where he gave me that quote about life being two sparks, or life being a spark between two identical voids. That's not really advice, but it was advice without him realizing it.
That's good.
Yeah, that was huge. And then what advice I would give myself?
If you could go back in time to, like, I guess when you're deconstructing, or I guess when you're first starting to question things, what would you say?
Yeah. I think I probably would have told myself when I first was majorly doubting it in November of 2019, just to go for it, not to hold back, that it would be okay. It's not scary. And to just seek answers outside of Christianity. So that's what I would tell myself, and just know that there's so much more better things waiting on the other side. I've never been happier. The community, the support, it's, I never could have imagined it being as wonderful as it is. So just to do it, and you're not going to regret it.
100%, and it's hard to communicate that with people who believe that you're going to hell or something, though. Like you like we try to communicate, like Amy was saying, like it's hard because we want to tell our family we're okay, we're good, but no, that's almost bad. Like they want us to be going bad if we're outside of the church, But yeah, that's probably the similar advice that I'd give myself. I think is when I was deconstructing, is it's fine. Like it's take, and that's what I always say. Like, I might be a orange robe monk with a shaved head in 10 years. I have no idea. I'm going to enjoy my life up until then, and after then, I'm gonna, like, enjoying your life is paramount to me. In regards to, like, don't sweat these things. Just beliefs can change. Always follow the evidence where it leads. Just keep on down that path, and it's okay. Like enjoy the ride of this beautiful life that we have. I will just to end, I will say, guys, go check out this stream with me. I am just such an amazing guest. No, I'm just kidding. These guys, we had a blast. It was really fun. And of course, there's so many cool videos on Skeptic Haven, and the only reason it's doesn't show up is I'm logged into a different account of, like, all the videos that I've watched. But yeah, this is great content here. Secular Soapbox is your show, and go follow Stacey on Instagram. You'll see some cool photos, maybe from your upcoming trip where you are now. Where did you go, by the way? Where did you travel to? Where are you? If you don't want to say, that's cool.
Oh, it's fine. We just drove to Vancouver for a couple of days.
Nice.
Which is 4 hours from where we live. We just came to see some family. So,
nice.
Just go see the sights. And
cool. Well, if you want to check out that, I'm sure you'll post some stories and stuff. And if you want to support this channel, click the join button. There's also a Patreon, which we're doing some fun stuff over there, let me tell you. But thank you so much for everyone for coming out. In a few days, we have Dr. Matthew Munger coming on to talk about the Bible. That's going to be wild, awesome, and amazing. And what I'm going to do is we're going to end on a trailer for the next panel we're doing on Deep Drinks, which is the Purity Culture panel. It's called Purity Culture Horror Stories. So thank you so much, Stacey, for coming on. And I'll see everyone in 2 days. Bye.
Thank you so much. Okay. Bye.